Thank you for being patient with us to get started here. We're sometimes a little bit technology challenged, but when it works, it's great. And I certainly hope that before you leave here this evening, that you'll have an opportunity not only to meet our guest speaker, but several of the legislators who are here as well. Here to, like many of you, to listen to someone who has dedicated her professional career to the development of curriculum that's meaningful and challenging for students of all ages in the public sector. She's an expert. We're lucky to have her here. She's got a busy schedule. That's why we're here on a Saturday night. That's why you're here on a Saturday night instead of home listening to the correspondence dinner with President Obama, which will probably be taped and you'll be able to listen to later. But there's a lot of things that you could be doing. We appreciate you being here in this rainy weather to listen to something very important, not only to our kids, but to our school system and to our state. My name's Mike Queen. I'm the MC. It's my duty to get you out of here as quickly as possible and to try to make the evening as informative as we can. I'd like to first welcome Fred Daly to please come up, and Fred will give an opening invocation and prayer. If you'll please stand.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this gathering place. We thank you that hopefully these concerned citizens that come out tonight to listen will be educated on the basic principle of teaching our children. We know this country was founded on your principles. It was founded on individual responsibility. This country was founded on the belief that all men, all people are created equal. It was founded on the basic principle that our rights come from you, God. They don't come from man. They don't come from the government. And it's our responsibility as citizens to make sure that we educate our children in the principles that our family believes in and our local community, and not that of outside agencies or the larger government. We thank you for the ability, the seating for the facilities we have to educate ourselves, and we trust that you'll give safe travels when everybody goes home. In your name we pray. And finally, I'd like to say, we pray for all the Christians that are being crucified across or punished and murdered across the world, that we find some way through your prayers that let those people know that we care about them, that we're here for them, and that things will change and put things back in the right perspective. Thank you in your name we pray. Amen.
If you'll remain standing, I know we don't have the flag. Oh, we do have it. What I tell you, when technology works, it works well, right?
It's little, but we got one.
The Boat Park guys didn't make it back in time, so if you'll, Delegate Jim Butler will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Delegate Butler.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I mentioned earlier to you that my name's Mike Queen. I've been involved in public education for 25 years. I'm a lot of formers. I'm a former member of the legislature. To my friends in the legislature here, I tell people I'm a recovering legislator. I'm a former member of the Board of Regents that at one time governed all 16 public college universities in the state. I am a former school board member and former president in Harrison County. And I can tell you that under 8 years when I served on the school board and No Child Left Behind, that when something else came down the pike, it really didn't matter what, when there was a new program, new standards, new curriculum being suggested that was something other than No Child Left Behind, school systems, elected officials, school board members rallied around it. We really didn't know that much about it, but we wanted something different than No Child Left Behind, because our classroom teachers will tell you that No Child Left Behind was almost impossible. In fact, it was impossible. there was no way we could achieve the goals and objectives that No Child Left Behind established for our classrooms and established for our teachers and our school systems. So when the State Board of Education came around to county school boards and said, we've got something called Next Generation, Smarter Balance, Race to the Top. Well, who wouldn't want to be part of that, right? In Harrison County, we were one of the first counties to jump on board. Now, I'm a pretty sharp guy, right? My son's here. He's saying, well, maybe. And I've been around curriculum for a number of years. Last 10 years on the State Board Advisory for Vocational Education Curriculum Standards. So I didn't put that much time into it. I just figured everybody was so excited to have an opportunity to make a change that we could get behind this and embrace it. Oh, it was 2 years ago, October, this group of people from over in the Parkersburg area came into my county, in Harrison County, to talk about how bad this Common Core, Next Generation, Race to the Top program really was. They didn't even invite me. So I went over and I listened to this lady named Angie Summers speak. And I listened to the statistics. And I listened to the data. And I found out that the data collection involved with Smarter Balance, involved with Common Core. Data collection that, for the first time ever, federalized our public school system, and more importantly, federalized the data on our school children. Not just academic data, disciplinary data, questions put into the Smarter Balance test that tell a little bit more about perhaps buying habits and habits at home and what's going on in the lives of these children. I said, there must be something wrong with her. There's no way in the world our State Board of Education, who has been trusted forever since the dawn of time in West Virginia by the legislature, because as a former legislator, and those legislators who are here will tell you, we trusted our State Board of Education to do the right thing. They really sort of act as a fourth branch of government. We trusted them to bring programs and to suggest ideas and concerns. And up till Smarter Balance and Common Core, the final decisions made on curriculum development really rested with the school, rested with the counties. There is no one size fits all. In Harrison County, we have 5 high schools and 5 almost totally different demographics. We could all meet the same standard, but there's got to be different routes to get there. Schools are more affluent than others. Some schools have more technology than others. To suggest that we could develop a federal program that fits all students in any school, in any county, in any state, in the entire country, well, I started thinking, how could I have bought into that so quickly? So I contacted Angie, contacted Senator Boley, who, by the way, is the dean of the state senate. She is the only lady in a pretty significant, pretty important boys club down in Charleston that she keeps everybody in line. I said, listen, how about getting your folks to come and speak at a town hall meeting in Harrison County with our school board so we can find out a little bit more about this Common Core, and we can have the State Board of Education here too. They said, we'll be there. The State Board of Education says, no. We're not coming if they come. What? The superintendent at the time, by the way, West Virginia's had four state superintendents in 6 years. That's not instability. What is? 4, but at that time, Jim Ferris, nice guy, got his start in the Harrison County school system as a teacher. He reluctantly agreed to come up and brought 11 other people with him from the State Department. The only 2 people that were sitting there was Angie and Donna against the powerhouse from Charleston. And at the end of the day, They made a lot of promises, didn't they, Senator Bowley? Not very many of them came true, did it? We have since got a new state superintendent. We have since discovered that there's a lot more to this Common Core than we ever imagined. And not only should we be concerned about the academic standards that it establishes, but we should be concerned about the data collection. And what happens to that data? Who collects that data? We found out just earlier this week, back on Tuesday, that a pretty sharp kid up in the northern panhandle found a way to hack into the system. Hacked his system up there. Now this is the same database that the State Board of Education plans on housing and being the superhighway for the data. I can tell you in Harrison County, we have 7,000 computers on our system in Harrison County. We have the 4th largest computer database system in the states, bigger than the FBI, because we have so many computers. We had a kid from South Harrison High School one day to figure out how to get through not one, not two, Senator Leonhardt, there were 6 firewalls he got through and crashed our system. Cost us $63,000 to upgrade the system. Now this is a 10th grader at South Harrison High School. And now all of a sudden, when we don't have enough bandwidth for every school to have internet, we don't have computers that work all the time like they're supposed to. Parents and elected officials, community leaders are asked to believe that we can take this data, securely maintain it, and keep it safe from those would-be hackers that would try to get into these systems. Does anybody really believe that that can happen now? Now we've got schools taking the Smarter Balance test, part of Common Core. It's going to take 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We've been talking about 180 days of instructional time and pushing counties to get their 180 days in, but nobody from the State Board of Education has said a word about the 3 weeks it's going to take some county school systems to get Smarter Balance taken, because it has to be taken on a computer. 3 weeks of classroom interruption. That alone tells me we're not ready. So why are we pushing? Why are we pushing? Well, we're going to find out why we're pushing. And our guest speaker tonight is somebody who has been all over the country to talk with groups like us, to talk with chamber groups, to talk with business groups, to talk to anybody that will listen. That, you know, setting standards and having high standards for our kids, that's not a bad thing. But federalizing education for the first time, making education part of this federal database maintained by private companies, and then being able to actually look at the standards and find out that in many aspects it dumbs it down, and in other aspects it sets our kids up for failure. She's going to tell you all about that. I would like to introduce to you Senator Donna Bowley, who will introduce us to our keynote speaker. Senator Bowley.
I need this or not. Can you hear me? You can hear me in the background? Okay, I won't. But if you have trouble yelling, I'll use it. First, thank you all for coming out, and thanks to Stormy for arranging this, and Peg for coming down. And just a side note, I've been in the legislature a long time, and back in the early 90s, I worked with this lady, and we worked, it was like about something similar. Yes. It was called School to Work. Any of you remember anything about School to Work? It was a project of the U.S. Department of Labor, not education. And Peg came down and worked with a woman named Mary Ann Rohr from Parkersburg. And I keep asking Mary Ann to get back involved, and she says, I've got 1 more year to teach and I don't want to get in trouble. So, but anyway, we'll get her back in. But I remember her from, I thought, well, I know her because she came down there several times, and we had meetings around Wood County and in different areas. I guess my job is just to tell you a little bit about how we got to where we are today. We have a group that we formed in 2008 in Pleasant County, and we have probably about 8 counties that come to our meetings, and we call ourselves the Constitutional Advocates. And we were the Constitutional Advocates long before we knew anything about Common Core. And the president, Fred Daly, would you just make him welcome here? Fred is our president of the, a leader, I guess, of our Constitutional Advocates. And Linda, where are you? His wife. And they're both from St. Mary's. So Constitutional Advocates was interested in what was going on, whether it be EPA or Obamacare or what was going on, affecting the Constitution. About November, December of 2012, there was a group sort of broke off, and they said, we're going to look at education. So there were about 7 of our group started studying education. One of them was Angie, and of course Fred, and they came to me probably about the 1st of February in 2013. And they said, Donna, what did you know about Common Core state standards? And I said, I don't know anything about it. I never heard of it. What are you talking about? Now remember, I've been in the legislature since 1985. And they said, well, it was passed by the State Board of Education in 2010. I didn't know anything about it. I felt really dumb that probably voted for it. But come to find out, make a long story short, the legislature had no part in it. It was voted in with the State Board of Education. Mike Queen alluded to the fact of race to the top and the stimulus money and the bride things. You know, if you don't like No Child Left Behind, you can get a waiver from it if you will vote for Common Core state standards. And of course, our board adopted it before the standards were ever completed. About the same time, Angie decides she's going to do a PowerPoint presentation. So she takes all the data that they've collected and did the PowerPoint presentation. One of the first people that we showed that was our past chairman of the Board of Education, Senate Education Committee, and that would be Bob Plumble from down in Wayne County. We learned a little bit about what happened, but you know, he confirmed that no, it didn't pass through the legislature. So Angie starts showing the PowerPoint presentation, and we decided it would be a good idea to take it to the State Board of Education. Maybe are you going to cover some of that?
No.
Okay, on the State Board of Education, and so we were chastised when we went in. Senator Boyd, would you please make it short because we're very busy today? In other words, we don't want to hear what you all have to say. We've already made up our mind. And they never had anything to say to us afterwards, except the acting Board of Education president read a prepared statement saying that they were very happy with Common Core state standards and that they had been developed by West Virginia teachers. Well, we just about fell off our chair. And I recalled back down, I said, I'd like a copy of that statement. Of course, there's nothing further from that statement. West Virginia teachers had absolutely nothing to do with writing the standards. I'm going to skip forward now. I'm just going to say that Angie and I and Fred and Linda, we've traveled the state. We've been every place, probably 100 showings, I would say, altogether. Just trying to educate not only our legislators, who knew nothing about it, and I think Senator Sockholt, he's our new education chair. When I walked in that day, I said, how many of you all know anything about Common Core state standards? And they just said, what? What are you talking about? So that's where we started from. None of us knew anything about Common Core state standards. To make, I would just like to say that during the 2013 and 2014 session, I introduced legislation to study, to have interim studies on Common Core, and we were denied that. But along comes 2015 when the House and there's several House members here, and I'm going to introduce them in a minute. When they voted 75 to 19 to repeal it, when they voted 20, and 15 were Democrats and 60 were Republicans, so it was bipartisan. Then all at once, Bob Plemmel in the Senate, he wants to study. And so the bill that came over from the House got gutted back to just a study. And of course, the House would not accept that. And it died, the bill died. But I want to thank every member of the House of Delegates. And I was hoping that the Chairman of Education would be here, Amanda Paxton, tonight, because she did a fantastic
She
job.
had a family emergency.
Pardon,
She had a family emergency.
family emergency.
She was going
She did a great job in shepherding that bill through the House. And I hope that the House can hold and long enough that the Senate can catch up with them and finish the job. I would like to introduce the delegates that's here tonight and the senators. Joe Statler, Mon 51. Jim Butler, who's been with us from the very beginning. He represents Mason and Putnam County and was a big factor in the House. Dave Seipel, West Virginia State Senator. Mike Folk, delegate from Berkeley County. Let me tell you, these guys have really gotten into this. I mean, even since we went out of session, they're researching and doing work. Senator Leonhardt, Kent Leonhardt. Senatorial district, that's, well, part of Mon, part of Marion.
And 8 other counties.
Yeah, they're over to Wetzel. And, in fact, the second connects right there with the third. Terry Waxman, Delegate Waxman. Brian and, where's Brian? Oh, and I never can pronounce your last name.
Kachaba.
Kachaba. The 51st, and Mike Moffett here. Mike is from Putnam County. I watched the House the last night of the session, and I watched the delegates, and there must have been about 15 delegates got up and talked against Common Core, along with Chairman Paxton and the Vice Chairman Walt
Duke.
what?
Walter Duke.
Duke, yes, Walter Duke. They did a fantastic job. But that, oh, I want to introduce also Chris Warner. He's our National Committee man. He's been helping us along with the National Committee woman fight this Common Core. I'm just a privilege here. I'd like to introduce my daughter, Carrie Long, and Carrie Long. I've never gotten into anything. They don't really like to discuss politics with me or education, but they came tonight, so I want to thank you both for coming. Barbara, I can't remember, Nitch. And Barbara and Carrie went to school together. Now, Barbara's over here. I don't know whether you all saw each other when you came in or not, but they went to school together in St. Mary's. Now, I'd like to take a minute and introduce Angie Summers. As I told you from the beginning, Angie's been our leader in this. During the session, when we were writing our bills, I felt that the state should put her on the payroll because she was down there about every day helping us to write that bill. She does research. If you call her and ask her, she'll make a presentation someplace, she's always ready to go. And Angie Summers from Wood County.
Now, thank you all for coming. We are grateful that you came because there's so much to learn. Thank you, Mike Queen. Mike has been so supportive, and we are grateful for his help. And all of you legislators, it was so important for you to come tonight. We need more of you to come, but slowly we're getting people educated. And I want to say thank you, a big, big thank you to this senator. Donna is a 30-year sitting senator, and she is in there for 30 years because of one reason, because she is the example of true representative government. She listens to her people, and that's why she continues to serve. She is a wonderful senator, and I can promise you, if she wasn't our senator, we would have had no voice in this at all. She has opened the doors for us. So, here's what I've got to say tonight. We have been on this journey for 2.5 years, and we have tried to raise awareness across the state about Common Core. For me personally, it has pretty much consumed my life. Fortunately, I have a supportive husband who seems to applaud our efforts. But a few weeks ago, he said to me, you know, I just wonder, what is it? What is it that drives you to keep doing this? Well, I couldn't give a short answer, but I want to tell you what I told him because this is my message. We know that our founding fathers knew that we must never ever leave education to the current prevailing political party. So they left us with the 10th Amendment. That means education belongs in the states. The greatest mistake that we can make is to allow anyone to make us believe that Common Core is just about educational standards. It is much, much more than that. It is massive data collection on us students and teachers. It is about the loss of our parental rights. It is about government intrusion and the federalization of our education system. And education is everything. This is my message, this is a battle that we cannot lose. Because if we lose this battle, we're going to lose our children. And if we lose our children, we have lost our nation. So tonight, we are honored with a lady who has given her life to this battle. She has given her life to saving American education and consequently our nation. She has 35 years of experience in education, teaching from all levels, kindergarten through college. She has been an author, a TV host, and an advisor to the Department of Education under President Reagan, where she reviewed educational initiatives like Common Core. She is a proud mother, a wife, and a grandmother, and you can find her on the web at foundedintruth.com. That is her site. She travels around the country giving presentations like this and testifying before legislators and spreading the truth about Common Core. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome a patriot and a true American hero, Dr. Peg Luksik.
I'm going to be standing out here tonight because I'm going to be giving you a PowerPoint. We need to turn that back on. Let me do the commercial portion of the program first. I'm going to feed you through a fire hose. And while I'm talking, you're going to be going, and when you go home, you'll say, what did she say? I don't really remember that. So what I did was I took a presentation like this. It's a little more generic because it's not just West Virginia. And I put them on CDs for you. They are original research. You'll see the documents so that you can read them and stop the slide, and you'll hear my voice. The first one is called, Should Our Children Be Standardized? What happens when the government attempts to mandate that every child learn the same thing in the same way on the same day? What does that do to a classroom? This one also includes the information on the new Advanced Placement U.S. History standards that some of you may have heard of. The College Board is rewriting American history for our seniors. This teaches the founding of America without mentioning John Adams or Thomas Jefferson, and it teaches the Second World War without mentioning Dwight D. Eisenhower, D-Day, Adolf Hitler, or the Holocaust. So if you want to know what's happening in the new American history standards, you want Should Our Children Be Standardized? The second one is called Invalid and Unreliable. These tests are high-stakes assessments. Valid and reliable, they mean something when you are measuring. The Common Core assessments do not meet the definition of valid or reliable in any way whatsoever. So what invalid and unreliable does is it takes all of the different ways that tests can be valid and reliable, explains them, and then puts the Common Core test beside them to show you how it doesn't match. They're available in the back at the end. I ask a donation of $10 because then I use them to make more. Like we just roll the money around. So if you want those at the end, just go into the back yourself. The website, as you heard, is founded on truth. You can visit the website. You can sign up for a weekly blog. It's free. There's a lot of information available on there for you as well. You've already heard about me. We're not going to be here all night. But Common Core didn't come from nowhere. In 1989, President George Bush the Elder had a summit meeting with the National Governors Association, which at the time was chaired by William Clinton, who was the governor of Arkansas. That meeting came together with an education agenda that broke the tradition of local control and created a mechanism to establish national education goals that all the states would have to buy into. There was a huge outcry when that happened. It was called outcome-based education and school to work, as you heard. And because of the outcry across the nation, Goals 2000, which was the federal legislation that created that, had no teeth. So in 2001, that was changed with the passage of No Child Left Behind under President Bush the Younger. So we have Bush the Elder, President Clinton, President Bush the Younger. You can see this is a bipartisan effort. It crosses all the party lines. What did No Child Left Behind do? No Child Left Behind is actually not new legislation. The federal government has no constitutional role in our schools. So the way that they get around that is they make money available to the states, basically dangling in front of the states saying, did you want the money? Well, then here's the requirements. That began in a big way in 1965 when Lyndon Johnson was president. It was part of the war on poverty. And the legislation was called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA. That act made literally billions of dollars available to the states. When the federal government makes money available, those bills have a deadline. This much money is available for this much time. When the time is up, either the money in the program ends or the bill must be reauthorized. In other words, the federal government has to pass new legislation to keep the funding going. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act has been reauthorized multiple times. The 2001 version of the reauthorization was called No Child Left Behind. That's why when you hear people talk about No Child Left Behind, you also hear them talking about ESEA, because No Child Left Behind is a continuation of a law that was originally passed in the 1960s. What did No Child Left Behind do? It said every state had to establish content standards and achievement standards for all public school students in the state. What is the difference between a content standard and an achievement standard? A content standard says this is what the teacher will teach. An achievement standard says this is what the child will learn. It is a mandate from the government to the individual child. And No Child Left Behind said those standards had to be set in math and reading and eventually science. The standards were supposed to be rigorous, and here's where the word first surfaces, and we'll see how the rigorous is defined in Common Core tonight. They had to describe, the states had to say there were various levels of achievement. Advanced, what you think, proficient, which meant passing, and then basic. If I were going to quantify basic, it would be a C- or a D. They know they're not failing, but they can't really do it. The states were given benchmarks, goals. Every year from the passage of No Child Left Behind until the 2013